Oliver Pichon Luthier here, and today what we're going to do is we're going to level and dress the frets on this ukulele fretboard. So the first thing we're going to do is going to file down the ends of the frets so that they're flush with the fretboard. We've installed them all a little proud before, and then I've nipped them off with nippers on the edge so that they're close to the edge of the fretboard, but they're not, they're still a little bit poking out and they're a little bit sharp. So we're going to take a file and just run it across like this, and you can hear when you get to the wood, you'll hear a difference. And this just takes down all those little high edges on the frets. There, you can hear it. Now we're to the wood in that area. There. These frets are pretty hard material. They're Evo Gold, which is harder than the silver nickel frets, but softer than stainless steel. There it is. Okay, so we've taken those down so that they're flush with the wood on the sides. Now to level the threads, what we're going to do is use a bar like this. This is a special made bar, which is steel, and it's and both the edges of it have been machined to be perfectly flat. And I've taken a piece of double-sided sandpaper, which is 220 grit here, and I've put it on this one side, and we'll use that to level the frets. But before we do that, we're going to go and we're going to mark the tops of the frets with a marker, with a Sharpie. And the reason for this is that when we level them, we can see which ones we need to take down and which ones are okay. So we just go through and we put a line right on the top, being careful not to get the marker on the actual ebony, because we don't want to have to deal with that later. So we're just going to do this, and there, we've marked all the tops of the frets. And now we're going to take this bar. I have actually 220 grit on one side and 100 grit on the other side, because I can use the 100 grit for leveling the fretboard itself before I put the frets on. So a lot of people like to put their frets on after this is attached to the body, but I prefer not to, because I hammer my frets on, and when I get in this area here, I don't want to be hammering over the body of the instrument. So I put my frets on before I put the fretboard onto the neck, and then I have the neck flat, I have the fretboard flat, and I put them on. So it usually works out pretty well. So we're going to take this, and we're just going to very lightly do circular motions like this to see which, and we can tell which frets are being taken down and which ones aren't. So which ones we know are high and which ones aren't. And if we come here, we can see actually that they're all pretty good. They're all pretty much in a straight line. We're just kissing these here, and this one is a little low in that one area. It still has marker on it. This one is a little bit low right in that one area. So we're just going to do this a little bit more. Usually doesn't take much, and there they are. They're pretty much there. This one, we need to come down a little bit on the rest of them to get them even with that one. Okay, so there we are. So they're leveled now. And we can go back over these if we want with a fret rocker, just to make sure. Fret rocker is this tool right here, and it's perfectly straight on the sides, and it has some, the sides are different lengths because when we're in this area we want to hit 3 frets. So we'd use this one here, and we go back and forth and see if there's any rock in it at all. Okay. And you can see there's no rock at all. Okay, we're getting to a point where we need to go to a little shorter side here to pick up these 3. Okay, that's good. Okay, so these are all good. We've got 3 of them still that we're on. Okay, we go to a little shorter side when we get down to this area. We do them on 3, so if you know that the one in the middle is high, it's going to rock back and forth and make a little sound. I did notice that on this first one, we've got a little bit, so this one is still a little bit low, this one's a little bit high. So what we want to do is take this down a little bit more. This one is still a little bit on the low side, so we're going to go and take a little bit more off of all of those. We'll take our 220 grit here, make sure we get the right side. Okay, so there they are. Now what this has done is it, of course, has created a flat spot on the top of these frets, and we need to take those down and turn them back into crown. So I'm sure we're good now on that. So we come in here and we'll see. Yeah, there's no rock at all now. That's just solid. So they're all good. So these frets are all in a perfect, the tops of the frets are all in a perfect plane, which is exactly what we want. Now, to get the crowns, which is the top part of the fret, so it's rounded, because we don't want this flat spot on top, because of course when we've done that it's created a flat spot. So what we're going to do is we're going to come across and we're going to mark the tops of these all again with a marker. Like this. For our for recrowning, it's called recrowning the frets, and there are numerous ways of doing that. There are tools like this, which are diamond. They have a little curve in them, and they have a diamond inside, and they come in different grits. This one has 150 on one side and 300 on the other. These are mostly set up for guitars, because you can see they have a wider slot in them. So when you do this with these, you're going to have to kind of keep it to one side or the other side. In order, the old-fashioned way is to use a 3-cornered file that has the corners smooth. So these corners are smooth, they don't have teeth on them, and the reason for that is that when you're doing this, you don't want to be filing into the fretboard. You can also take if you're concerned about cutting into the fretboard, you can use a little guide like this to put over the top of the fret, and that way when you're coming in, you're only going to be filing on the sides of the fret and not on the top. And so the trick with this is to come across with a nice even stroke and to roll the file over like this. And the idea, the reason that we've marked it is that we want to take off the sides a little bit, round it, so we just leave a very thin little stripe of the marker on the top. That tells us that we've got a nice round fret, crown on the fret, and that the and the top is just very small little rounded area. So when we come in, this is looking good, like this. This is the old-fashioned way of doing it without all these diamond gadgets. That's one way. So we put that on there, and you can see that we've got a nice crown on that one there. So on this next one, we can do it that way. Another way is, this is another tool that has the same little groove in it. This is for a narrow frets, which is what these are. So this works pretty well. This is perfectly smooth here, so we don't need this little guide here, to a little protector. So we just go over them with this, like this, and this is going to do the same job that we just did before. And you can see we just leave this one leaves a teeny little red line. I left a little more on that one. We can actually take that one down. There it is, right there. Okay, so it doesn't take much to do that. So those are the three ways rather, with this tool, which is more for guitars because it has a wider slot on it, or we do this one here. Or we do the old-fashioned technique with this. So once we've got all of these done, I'm not going to do them all right now because it takes a little while to do, then we're going to have to deal with this corner here that's sticking out. So to deal with that, we can use our file once again and come in, and we can hold it at an angle because we want to round that slightly over like that. So there's several ways of doing that, and with the file is one way, and then the other way is when we sand it, because we're going to go over the whole thing with sandpaper. So I'm going to, let's see, maybe I should just go ahead and quickly go through and see if we can crown these guys right now. It goes pretty quickly with this tool here. Okay, that looks good. And just a little teeny little red line there. There we are. Okay, this is looking really nice. This one was pretty, you know, the neck itself was, I had very flat, and then the fretboard itself, I had it very flat to begin with. So we're in good shape with these. The trick is not to take too much off, because basically what happens is that if you take one fret down too far, it's not that you've taken that one is going to be low, it's that all the other ones are going to be high. And the only way to remedy that is to take all the other ones down to the point where they are the same as that one. This is really coming out very sweet. So there it is. Okay, so I don't know if the camera shows it really well, but I can just see a very light little red line on the top of all of those, meaning that we're right where we need to be. So now we're going to take some 400 grit sandpaper here, and a trick with this is if you fold it, it can often crack. So I just curl it on the edge of something sharp like that, and then that allows it to fold up better. And then we take this, and we're just going to go over the tops of them like this. pretty lightly. That's taking it up to the next grit because our file and the crowning tool only take it to 320 grit, so this is 400. So we do that. Now, one way to round these off is once again with this file that we have, we can come in at an angle and we can file those down at a slight angle, or we can take our sandpaper and just run that down. And that's just going to slightly round those edges. The ends of the frets slightly, just slightly. And we'll do this side. You can see the, you have to be careful that you don't have your finger in there because these can still be sharp. On a guitar you can afford to have a little more round on this, but on this particular, on an ukulele, you have to be careful because the string is going to be pretty close to the edge, and you don't want to have it rounded over to the point where the string is going to be in that area where it's rounded over. So I just do this for this 400, and then we come back with some 600 here. Curling it on the edge really helps to, especially even when you're putting it in a sanding block. And we'll do the same thing with this. Got some marker on me. That magic marker. We'll do the edges again. Hear it that it's when it's up against the wood, and this doesn't hurt to be sanding the wood a little bit here with this 600 grit. There we go, and we can go down and we can feel that they feel pretty good. I can feel that some of them, like this one right here, I can feel a little bit of edge on that. There's a special file for that, and this file has teeth on both sides, none on the edges. And one edge is flat and the other edge has a round over on it, a curve. So if we take the flat one, which is perfectly smooth on that side, we can come in and we can just go along like this, and that just takes off that little corner that could be sharp on that fret. So we just do it on both sides like that, like that. There we go. And it just takes a couple of strokes just to take off that little sharp burr, or that little part that's on that fret, and that takes it right off. And then the rounded part is, we can hold it down and then we can round it over the top of the fret like this, over that curve, and that's going to make it so it's nice and smooth on that edge. So that fret now, I can't even hardly feel the edge of it. I can feel that it's there, but it's not sharp. And we can feel that there's a couple down here. I'm not going to go through the whole thing like this because it takes a little bit of time to do all that, but that's basically what we do. Now, to polish these frets, there are several ways of doing that, and one is with these are fret erasers, and they come in different grits. 220, I have ones here that are 220 all the way up to 2000 grit, and so we can go in, and we've already sanded these to 600 grit, so we don't want to use coarser ones. This is an 800 grit one, and we can just come in and we can just use this. It feels like an eraser, but it actually has some grit to it, and so we can come in and go over that fret like this. And we can get the end of it to I'll take care of these other ones later. So we're there on this one. That's 800 grit, and then we can step it up. I don't go through all the different steps. I'll jump right to the 1200 grit one. This is 1200 grit. We just want to make sure that we don't have any file marks from or sandpaper marks from our leveling process. And then we have one that's 2000 grit. I'll go over it with that. And that is really, really sweet. It's very shiny and nice and smooth. And then, of course, I can take some 4/0 steel wool and go over it as well. And it just shines right up. If this is shiny enough for you, then you're all set. If you want to take it further, you can use a buffing wheel and some jeweler's rouge on it and get it even finer, but that is just as smooth as glass. So that's what we're going to do to all of these frets, basically what we've done to this one. It has a nice round crown on the top, and it's not at all sharp on the edge. There's no sharpness there at all, and that's basically what we do. So once we have these all done, then we'll come back and attach the neck to the body. And so we've got the body here that we've already put together, and I've shown that. And this dovetail joint is going to slide right in there like that. The neck goes over the top, and you can see how that fits so beautifully there with the rosette. I really like to have this little, I call smile here with the rosette, and that dovetail joint is really strong. We're going to trim this here, the heel on this, before we glue this on, and then we'll put a heel plate on that as well. I like to have the heel plate flush with the back, and so we'll do that later. But for now, that's how we dress and crown the frets, and I think you can see it does a really beautiful job of doing that. So this is where the nut goes right there. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this. If you did, give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and pass it on, and we'll see you next time.